going on, everybody? Welcome to the best corner of the worst community and all the internet, that being the MMA community, and that being the Blue Corner podcast. Today, we are joined with Teeballpaul. Thanks for coming.
Well, thanks for having me, I guess.
And we are joined by Hendrix.
Yo, what's up, everyone? It's your favorite reoccurring guest on this podcast. Let's go, baby.
Yes, your absolute favorite. So what just happened?
I mean, I was hoping you'd tell me. You're the smart guy here. You're the lawyer and everything.
Yeah. Okay. Look, I feel like we can get to the rest of the card in a bit. We just gotta jump right in. That's what the people want. We gotta jump right into Izzy versus Strickland.
Just dive head first.
Head first. Rip off the Band-Aid. Yeah. T-Ball, I want to know what face you made.
The face I made was of shock. The face I made was of fear, really. I was scared to see what the world would look like with Sean Strickland as champion. Turns out the world looks pretty nice today. It's not as bad as I thought. But really, that first knockdown in the first round set the tone for the entire fight. And I knew something was off about Izzy. However, the first moment I knew something was off was actually before he got knocked down in the first round. It was when Bruce Buffer was announcing him and the Sydney crowd was absolutely silent. They were roaring for Sean Strickland. And when Izzy was announced, they didn't boo him. They just stopped emoting anything. And I was like, ooh, there's going to be a weird energy in the air tonight. I don't know how to explain that, but there was a weird energy in the air from there on after. Izzy gets knocked down in the first, does okay in the second, and then in the third, fourth, and fifth. Oh, sorry, I have a landline. Let me take care of it. I live at my grandparents' house, people. I would try. It's happy with a good. But what really stood out to me in the later rounds was Eric Nixick, Sean's coach. He had some great lines in the corner. One really cracked me up was, "You're letting him snake charm you out there."
Oh, yeah.
Which is like a good description of Izzy's, the way he moves his body and how kind of mysterious he is. So I thought that was an apt comparison. And then after that, the strategy just kept getting more and more aggressive from Strickland. Strickland was listening to his coach, Eric Nixick, every moment along the way. And then you go to Izzy's corner, and Izzy wasn't really on the same page as Eugene Berriman. And 25 minutes go by, and we have a new middleweight champion. There's really not much else to say.
Yeah. What about you, Hendrix? How are you feeling?
It's like I couldn't even believe what I was watching in front of my own two eyes, because it was like Izzy the entire fight was looking for a counter that wasn't there. He was trying to do the same thing the entire time, but it wasn't working. But for some reason, he just couldn't adjust. He was being very weird in the corner, which was very odd, because usually, like the city kickboxing team, they're very good at finding these game plans. They're very good at having backup game plans. They're very good at these types of situations, but the whole energy of everything seems so off. And I don't know fully what it was, but it's like, I don't know. Izzy was expecting something to happen. Maybe he expected Sean to make the same mistakes that Rob makes, that Alex makes when they pressure, but Sean, he's so defensive while he's pressuring. It just almost threw him off, I guess. But it was just a whole weird scenario, and I can't fully believe it happened.
So you guys know I've been an Izzy fan for a very, very long time. Izzy's been like my favorite, if not my second favorite fighter, since I started watching MMA. That's why I have the Naruto get up in honor. Okay. Like I've seen him look like this 2 times before. And one was against Jan Blachowicz. Neither was against Yoel Romero. In both of those fights, he looked just bad. Like, he looked like somebody doing an impression of Izzy more than he looked like Izzy. In this fight, he looked pretty much the same way. The only difference is he took bombs from Polish Power and he took an overhand from Yoel Romero. In this fight, he got dropped by Sean Strickland. That is the first knockdown that Izzy has ever been. He's been literally TKO'd in the UFC, but he has not been knocked down until just now. So immediately I'm like worried that maybe Izzy's over the hill. I mean, he's had more than 100 combat sports fights that have all been, boxing, kickboxing, and then MMA that's largely stand up. He's taken a lot of shots, and it's possible. I don't know. I'm not his friend. I'm not his doctor. I have no idea. But it's possible that Izzy, over the last couple months, has been getting knocked down in sparring. He's been feeling a little bit kind of electric when somebody starts hitting him. He's getting a little bit more swimmy. He's seeing double a little bit more when people are punching him. And that caused him to be defensive against Sean Strickland and to not really go for stuff. Like, he needed to be able to rely on his chin in order to feel good in the fight, almost like a watered down version of what's happening to Tony Ferguson, where he used to always rely on his chin, and he needed to, like, in order to focus on his offense, understand that if something gets through, he's fine. But maybe it's the case that he understands that his chin is getting a little bit worse. He's like 34. He's like getting older. He's had all these fights. And so he's more tentative, and it just doesn't mesh well with his game plan. But when I watch something like that, it looks like, Amanda Nunes and Juliana Pena, where we see this guy who's great, who's going to win, like, in all likelihood. Who could even argue? And then the other person completely steamrolls them. Now, in Amanda's case, she was able to come back and win, but we have all too many examples of people not being able to come back. So I'm hoping that this was a speed bump on his road as opposed to being, the new norm.
Everything you said was right. There is a fear that we could be seeing the end of Israel Adesanya's prime. But the thing that I wanted to mention was we kind of had a little bit of a back and forth on this last night when I was in your live. But I seem to think that the outrageous stories that circulated around Israel this past week may have played a factor into the fight, may have gotten into his head, and may have given us a tired, emotionally exhausted Israel Adesanya on fight night. What do you two have to say about that?
If MMA Guru caused Izzy to lose, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I think I'm just gonna turn into the Joker. I don't know what else I could possibly do. But I think that, this is a little bit weird because people have been calling him soft, saying that he's skinny. And guess what he gets to do? He gets to go out there and beat up a buff guy. And he knows he can do that. And, like, people have been calling him not masculine. And he's able to go out there and knock out Pereira. You know what I mean? Like, people have been calling him, like, all kinds of stuff that he can refute. But this is like a weird one. It's a weird one. It's like they're saying, like, weird stuff about him. And he can't really refute it, and if he addresses it, it kind of sounds defensive. You know what I mean? There's not like it's kind of a rock and a hard place type situation. And, like, I think that that's possible. I just think that it's more likely that he had the flu, he had a bad weight cut, he's too old now, he's maybe something to do with the lawsuit with his ex-girlfriend, like, just anything like that, or a combination of everything. You know what I mean? There's no telling what it could be. But what we do know is that something was not right. I'm not going to discredit Sean Strickland because it's difficult to beat Izzy even in his worst day. But I will say that I think that if Vettori or Cannonier or Whitaker or Drickus fought Izzy yesterday, they would have all won.
obviously I mentioned I almost think he expected to be able to capitalize off of mistakes with the pressure like he was able to with Rob, he was able to with Alex, he was able to with everyone. But the fact that like Sean has this weird Philly shell, which it's a weird stance in MMA, but when you're fighting a guy who's not going to shoot a takedown, it works really well because you can parlay the jab, you can block your body, you can use your shoulder to help you deflect the head kicks, and that's a lot of Izzy's game. And so his game plan obviously wasn't working. He kept trying to do the same thing. It wasn't working. He just didn't seem to know what to do. Piled on with the amount of hate he's gotten, which he's always got hate, but I think it's been turned up to level 100 as of late. Even his own, like usually he can usually rely on his people to cheer him. And like Paul said, even Australia was against this man that night. Like they didn't give him a reaction. They gave him nothing to work with. And piled on with the dog drama, piled on with the lawsuits, piled on with the amount of wars, the criticism. I think we all talked about how he's a man who fights better when he hates someone. Like at the end of the day, we all as people have our breaking points, and I feel like piled on with him not able to do the counter that he obviously wanted to do, him not expecting this out of Sean Strickland, him getting knocked down when he was trying to set the tempo of the fight, him having bad communication with his corner, the hate, the drama, the lawsuits. I think Izzy finally reached his boiling point, and I think we saw that very evidently tonight, or last night, my bad.
I agree with that, CEO.
Yeah. And but going forward, as the resident Izzy stan, I do have to say I don't think he should get an immediate rematch. They said that Dana said that he's going to get a rematch and it's going to happen soon. I don't think that that's appropriate in this circumstance because literally Izzy's last fight was an immediate rematch, number one. And number two, against Beta. And number two, it wasn't that competitive. It wasn't back and forth. It wasn't a Volk versus Islam. It was it was very, very one-sided. Izzy won round 2 on points, and that's pretty much it. And then in rounds 4 and 5, he looked like he just wanted to get out of there. So, I don't think that that's necessarily warranted right now. And I also think that the winner of Costa and Chimaev is going to be they're both so big that if Izzy just fought the winner of Costa and Chimaev, then that could be a co-main event on any card. Because you're not going to put Izzy in the Apex. You're not going to put him on. That'd be crazy. You can't put him on a fight night. You got to put him, and you can barely make him fight without a belt on the line. But you can put him on a co-main event against Costa or Chimaev. And and so I feel like also, though, I do recognize that Sean Strickland versus DDP would do the worst numbers you could possibly imagine. I don't think I would buy it. I don't think I would be on my phone while it's occurring. I think that'd be pretty terrible. Do you guys think that Izzy deserves an immediate rematch?
You want to go first?
I have a whole theory on how I would like the middleweight division to shake up regarding this topic. So what I think should happen is that Israel Adesanya is 1-2 in his last 3 title fights. That does not warrant an immediate rematch to me. However, I understand the business of the UFC. He's one of the highest paid athletes in the promotion, netting maybe somewhere around $5 million a fight. He's on the cover of the new video game, which, yes, there is a UFC video game curse. I debunked it in a video. But I think a good compromise to make a money fight with the highly paid Izzy is match Izzy up against Dricus du Plessis, market it as a number 1 contender fight. All the heat's there, all the storylines there. It could be a co-main event of a very high-profile pay-per-view, or it could main event a pay-per-view, or maybe main event a fight night, however they want to spin it. And then you match up Sean Strickland with the winner of Costa versus Chimaev. And both Costa and Chimaev have a really good shot of taking Strickland out of there. And lots of fresh matchups could be made if Strickland were to fall to either Costa or Chimaev. Let me backtrack a little bit. If Costa wins, that sets up a potential rematch with Izzy, and I don't know what the appetite is for that one. But the way I laid it out, it has some cons, but I feel it has more pros.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
I like it. I like it. I will be straight up. Izzy's gonna get the immediate rematch. It's good for business, money, blah blah blah. But off of merit, which the UFC doesn't run by nowadays, just look at Bilal Muhammad not getting a title shot, but doesn't deserve it. He's 1-2 in his last 3. His last fight, his last victory, I should say, was immediate rematch. So it's like, come on. And to be honest, like there's a lot you could do if you with the middleweight division right now. I mean, you could have Izzy fight Robert Whitaker again because they're both coming off losses now. You could have, I guess, you could have Jared Cannonier fight the winner of Paulo Costa versus Hamzat. You could have Dricus fight Sean Strickland right now, and the winner of Jared Cannonier versus the winner of Paulo and Hamzat gets a title shot at whoever wins with Dricus and Sean Strickland. I mean, there's a lot you could do, but we already know Dana's gonna give Izzy that immediate rematch, but I don't know. He doesn't deserve it. Let's be
fair. Let me interject with this really quick. Do you think there's a good chance that the middleweight title could play hot potato over the next 12 months and we see 3 or 4 new champions in the division?
100%. I could absolutely see a world where Dricus shows up and beats Sean, and then like Dricus is the champion, and then Chimaev shows up and beats him.
Yeah.
And then like, you know, Whitaker comes back and beats Chimaev, and then Izzy comes back and beats Whitaker. Like I could 100% see that. And it's almost like paper, rock, scissors, but with like 8 different things that you could throw.
Yeah. Very likely reality.
We also have to think, like, the middleweight division is about to be on some crackhead stuff right now. Because think of what the division as a whole, like all the fighters, are thinking right now. Because for a long time, we have been in the common consensus. Izzy's number 1, Rob's number 2. Izzy's number 1, Rob's number 2. Blah 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 blah. Rob and Izzy both lost their last fight, so now we're in this weird time. The first and second best fighter in the division both lost, and now we could see like, obviously the title playing hot potato. We could see the whole division getting a lot hungrier and a lot more exciting again because, well, I mean, they're beatable now.
It is exciting times. As sad as the Izzy fans are that he lost, you have to admit that the division is wide open now.
Yeah, I think that like Izzy versus Whitaker was just such a high level fight, and like Izzy versus Pereira was another high level fight, and the next one might be Strickland versus Duplessis. I'm just so sad for that. Like I'm so, because I mean, I think that they just kind of, I don't know. Dricus has his own thing, but Strickland feels to me like he, you know, just sees what works in his own personal experience and uses that as opposed to relying on like other people telling him what techniques he should use, you know?
Yeah.
And that's going to work if Izzy's super slow and doesn't see anything coming and gasses out in the third. But it's not going to work if he's on. It's not going to work if it was prime Izzy, and it's not going to work against Pereira, and it's not even going to work against Jared Cannonier. You know? Yeah. And you're also going to go to, you know, a decision with somebody that's not ranked. You know, it's just there is limits to that. And And with Duplessis, like, I have no idea what to even think of him because he looked like a world beater last time. And then before that, he looked like just a cartoon character, Three Stooges guy that like happens to, you know how like in the movies they have like a baby that like crawls out the window and then like a girder comes and the baby crawls in the girder and then like that's what he looked like. He was like stumbling his way through the division while meanwhile winning. And then against Whitaker, he looked incredible. I don't know. I don't know about Dricus. I don't know.
What sums up Dricus's run perfectly, there was a hilarious meme that was on the internet not too long ago. And basically the gist of it was a great fighter that keeps on losing, and it was a picture of Piotr Jan.
Mm.
And there was a dog shit fighter that keeps on winning, and a picture of Dricus.
That's like, so accurate. Yeah.
That's got to be the best one I've seen in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Dricus, I just think of like Jesse from Breaking Bad when he says he can't keep getting away.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to see Derek Brunson fight Strickland if Strickland loses the belt, because Derek Brunson is the worst good fighter.
Yeah.
He's good, but he's the worst good fighter in the world, and Strickland is the best bad fighter in the world. So we could get that done.
That'd be cool, yeah. But I really think that the people that could jockey for a title shot right now are DDP, Costa, Chimaev, Cannonier. Bro. Those are really the four, because Cannonier has a win over Strickland and looked amazing against Marvin Vettori. So it's really, and he was the backup for this fight. So the promotion loves to reward the backup fighters. So I'm really interested to find out what the promotion decides to do with Jared Cannonier, because his last year has pretty much been perfect, being a company man and delivering exciting fights. And then Costa, people underestimate how big of a star he is. He's huge in Brazil. He's pretty huge over here. The fans love him. He can probably generate a 500,000 pay-per-view at least. Chimaev, one of the biggest stars in the sport. We may not see it in the States over here, but every time I do a video on Khamzat Chimaev, just by entering the hashtag or talking about him, it'll do 10, 20,000 more views than otherwise. Then who was the fourth? DDP. DDP has a whole country of South Africa behind him, and fighters like that always move the needle when it comes to the big fights. The countries show up for the big fights. So I really think the champion's beatable in Sean Strickland.
Mm-hmm.
So however you want to slice it, however you want to dice it, these 5 middleweights that I just mentioned, even if they hot potato the belts, it's going to be a really fun and lucrative time for the UFC, I believe.
Yeah. Paul, you usually know all this stuff, so I'm going to ask you, is Jared Cannonier the first person to ever be the backup fighter for a challenger he beat?
That's a really interesting question. Well, Brandon Royval was the backup for Pantoja versus Moreno. I don't know if Royval beat either of those guys. I'm assuming he didn't. Anthony Smith was going to be the backup for for Blachowicz versus Ankalaev.
Thank God. Thank God that never transpired.
Bro.
Right?
Oh my, could you imagine Jan versus Smith that night? Like, he would have been leg kicking him and just would do nothing about it.
Yeah. But yeah, would you not be salty if you beat somebody and then they get a title shot and you're the backup?
Yeah. And then not just that, but you also went out there and you decimated Marvin Vettori, like not even remotely competitive type of decimation.
Mm-hmm.
You
And
said
then you
That's a
see
really
that
good
Izzy was
question, Hendrik.
beatable on that night. Izzy was beatable on that night, and you're like, what? Dude,
What?
if that was
Yeah.
me.
Yeah,
Oh,
Jared would have beat him that night too.
Bro, he might have knocked him out.
yeah.
He's a monster right now.
Jared has looked really good in his last couple fights, and at 40 to just be a physical force like that is a testament to how well he's taking care of his body.
At 40 years old, he set the record for the most significant strikes in middleweight history.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Incredible. Dude, okay, I'm actually glad that it was Strickland because Strickland, beating Izzy like that, we're like, okay, Izzy looks slow. He's not really he's not reacting to anything. He's overreacting to all these punches, getting hit really hard, and he's actually getting hurt by these punches, stuff like that. And it's like, okay, so this is probably an Izzy problem. If Cannonier was out there and smoked Izzy, I would be like, oh, okay. Well, no, he's the GOAT. Like, Cannonier is just going to run through everybody. Like, we just saw him do this to Vettori, and then we saw him do this to Izzy. Like, that's it. We're done.
That would be a good run. That would be a really good run. And don't forget the win over Strickland, too.
Yeah.
That run. I think a good segue going off the middleweight title fight is to mention that it was a tough night for City Kickboxing. They did go 3-3, but that's still 3 L's for Eugene Behrman and the crew. And I'm looking here, Shane Young was submitted quickly. Blood Diamond looked like his style is not suitable for mixed martial arts, if I'm being completely honest.
Blood Diamond has the eye of the tiger.
Carlos Ulberg had an okay performance. He really gassed out in the third round, and he wasn't even having that much output, so that's concerning.
Yeah.
Tyson Pedro knocked out the Pleasure Man, which
hell yeah.
If you caught any of the Pleasure Man's walkout, it was hilariously awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I was so happy when he got knocked out, bro. He was just like annoying as hell this entire time. It felt good.
And that's
Tafa also got the first round. Is Tafa CKB?
That I don't know. I think Tafa trains in Australia with a different camp.
Mm.
But that was an amazing knockout as well. We don't have to spend too much time on the CKB thing. I just wanted to mention it's a bad night for them.
Mm-hmm. It's true. And they got called the F-slur. That was kind of crazy too, huh?
Yeah. Do we want to? Yeah, let's talk about that. That seems to be a big thing.
Bro, I'm mad because I missed it when it happened live.
You're mad because you missed it,
bro. I didn't know what people were talking about when I joined.
It's 2 separate times in the same night. I mean, I don't know where. I don't know why.
Repercussions. Dana White can't just say, "Oh, it's the fight business. These guys are crazy." Find them.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, Sean Strickland didn't even say it.
Yeah.
That's if Sean Strickland won't cross a certain line, then you've done a mistake.
So Manel Cap is from Luanda, Angola. And I believe he probably spent a good deal of his life. He's Portuguese and Angolan. So he was born in Africa, most likely grew up in Portugal to some degree. Is that word acceptable in either of those countries? Is that like...
Do they speak English in those countries?
Exactly. So when he first said it, I was like, okay, he's a foreigner or whatever. We'll give him a pass. But he's been here long enough to know that that word is a bad word. And it's like, I don't think it's like how because Australians in English they use the C word a lot, and they throw out you mother, they say it, and it's kind of like a term of endearment and stuff. I don't know any culture where this particular F word we're discussing is a term of endearment. So I don't know, Manel Cop. That was a little low hanging fruit.
It looks even worse for Manel also because in the entire build up to the fight he was kind of being a dickhead. So it looks really bad for him right now.
He's really playing into the dickhead card, but
also the fact that I feel like he knew because he was like, "You guys aren't gonna do nothing." You know why? because you got like it was like, you know, he was like charging up for it. He was like, should I, shouldn't I? I'm going for it. Like he didn't, it didn't just slip out. Like he was like, no, you're about to hear this one.
Nah, it's like when Izzy
DC
spammed the
ripped
N-word, there was
his
intentions with it.
Yeah.
DC yanked him off. Oh my, DC's like 300 pounds now. He's just completely enjoying retirement, maybe a little too much. And he just like literally yanked Manel off the ground, held him up like a child.
That was so funny. Usually he has his hand on their back and he goes, I'm here with the winner. Congratulations. Da-da-da. And he was like walking out of the cage. You saw DC's giant back like leaving the cage, and he's just like, congratulations, you're a winner. Anyways.
The funny thing is that Manel Kopp used to train at AKA, so him and DC know each other like really well.
Oh my god.
So DC had his work cut out for him that night.
Lately, the Octagon has been turning into a Call of Duty lobby, man. This is crazy. First Izzy, now this, you know, we're going all over, aren't we?
Oh yeah.
Uh-huh. But
well, it's just the thing. It's like, when is the MMA community going to draw the line as to discerning what is acceptable in fight promotion and what is unacceptable in fight promotion? For example, in 2018, Conor McGregor notoriously brought in family and religion into fight promotion. And that was a gateway to the next couple of guys bringing in family into fight promotion. We haven't seen too much religion being brought into fight promotion as of late, but definitely with the Colby Covingtons, with some of these other people, family is definitely still something that gets brought up from time to time. Yeah. Now, I feel with this week and Sean Strickland and the MMA guru nonsense that sexual fetishes are going to start being incorporated into the promotion of a fight. So we go from family to religion to sexual fetishes to the night of the fight, two fighters using homophobic slurs. And my question to you guys is, what's the next thing that's going to be acceptable into fight promotion if this is already where we're at and the UFC hasn't drawn a line in the sand as to what is acceptable to say?
I'm going to tell you exactly what's going to happen. Here's what's going to happen. Drickus, he's going to go out there. He's probably going to beat Sean Strickland. And then he's going to be like, hey, Izzy, I'm African, but I'm no. And then you know what he drops. You know what he drops. You can fill in the blanks.
That's another one I forgot to mention. Race is now part of the fight.
And nationality too, with the whole
What is next?
It's skull science, I guess. Skull science, just phrenology.
Skull science.
Yeah, people are gonna get into skull science and phrenology, and they're gonna be like, hey, you know. You have like an inferior, less evolved, whatever. Like they're just gonna go progressively. They're gonna go progressively back in time, because like misogyny has always been allowed. Nobody's ever cared, so we've always been like that far back. But then we start going back from there, right? So, yeah, I don't know. It's pretty rough. It's It's like, because I think that the thing is they're not cracking down. Because they think that when the NBA and the NFL and all this, like whenever they police what their athletes say, UFC thinks they do it for no reason. UFC thinks they do it because they just woke up on a happy Saturday and they decided to do that. There's a reason, and there's a good reason, which is what we're talking about. We don't like. If this gets too bad, first of all of these fighters are chuds and they're all dumb. Okay, let's be real. Like maybe not. I mean, I shouldn't say all, but like a vast majority of them are. They got some weird stuff. We got flat earthers. We got all this kind of stuff, and like
we have protectors.
They're gonna start
of the realm.
Bro, Jared Cannonier is literally like. He plays with crystals type thing.
Yeah. We got people with weird beliefs and they're going to start saying them and it's going to get a little bit weird. I just made my video about Sean Strickland saying that Australia should make a freedom of speech.
Yeah, I remember we were talking about that.
Yeah, he was like, yeah. Could you guys just go to the store and grab a freedom of speech real quick?
Yeah.
I talked about why they actually objectively have more freedom of speech in America, but like, we're getting this weirdness, and like, it would be one thing if they were like, I stand with Ukraine, or I like something just very vague and milk toast, and like if they just said like, Black Lives Matter or something like that, it's just kind of like,
Yeah,
it's a little bit kind of, you say something, it's very sort of like liberal
Mi-
coded, or like
mildly
very
political.
mildly political. Izzy has said before, like, oh, the lockdowns are too much, and it's like, you know what I mean, like mildly kind of whatever. But we gonna get crazy if they don't start cracking down, if they don't make an
Bro.
example out of somebody.
But Neil's gonna come
Yeah.
up in the next post-fight interview, be like, "All right, of course I gotta thank Jesus, but also Marxism. Marxism is my favorite."
Yeah.
It's like, who would have thought that the UFC would be the platform for all radical ideas in society?
Okay.
It's just okay to mention them in your post-fight interview. Don't mention them on Twitter. Don't mention them in the scrums. But when you get a mic in front of your face after you won a fight, you could say anything you want with no repercussions.
And the thing is, I think a big part of it also is, let's be real, the sport of MMA attracts a lot of very interesting people,
Yeah.
and those people also have a very misunderstood interpretation of what freedom of speech means, because they think freedom of speech means these fighters, they should be able to say whatever they want all the time, no repercussions, just blah 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 blah, because that's freedom of speech. When all freedom of speech is, it doesn't mean you can't be, there's no consequences for anything you say. What it means is you can't be imprisoned for having an opinion. You can't be imprisoned for saying something stupid, but that doesn't mean you could say just whatever you want and expect zero repercussion for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well said.
That was a pretty good analogy. I mean, that's a pretty
Oh
good analysis there. Yeah, because I'm a lawyer.
yeah.
Don't I look like a lawyer in my Akatsuki outfit? But
You know,
yeah,
if I saw you in the courtroom, I'd pick your side, you know?
thank
I,
you.
I know
Thank
you're
you.
about to.
It's like I could say the Raiders suck, but I'm gonna have to expect repercussions from my neighbor who's a Raiders fan.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as that.
Yeah. And yeah. And it's also just the UFC is not the government, thank God. And so, they can tell you that they're gonna fire you. They can tell you, they can
Exactly.
tell you to stop, or they're gonna fire you, or they're gonna fine you, or they're gonna cut your pay or whatever. Like, maybe not those, but you know what I mean? Like, they can tell you as your employer what to say. So
Yeah.
there's just no, but um look, I think that Sean Strickland is going to chill out.
Yeah.
I think he will. I think that, speaking of like saying crazy stuff and stuff like that, I think he's going to chill out, because I think that a lot of this was he's trying to be sort of out there and crazy to show that he doesn't care and stuff like that, because if you show that you do care and you lose, it's a bad thing. Sort of like how John Jones talked about how he would go partying the night before a fight so that he would have that built-in excuse.
Yeah.
Like, Sean Strickland, legitimately, when he goes to the gym, he puts everything in a Walmart bag, his gloves and everything in a little Walmart bag with like 3 things in them, and brings them. And it's easier to just have a backpack. Like, he wants to show that he doesn't care. And now that
Yeah.
he's champion, you can feel free to care because you're champion. Like, you know what I mean? It's not, nobody's gonna be looking down on you. Like, you're the champion, and there's gonna be a level of like, maybe not insecurity, but like there's gonna be a level of like good faith people give to you. Like, people are recognizing him as a good fighter currently, which means that he doesn't have to prove, oh, I'm only getting beat because and I think that he's gonna chill out, because and also people are like showing him a lot of love, and he's also had a lot of exciting fights in a row. So I just think that like he's gonna get fulfillment from more wholesome ways than from people like laughing at him out of shock. you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
He can still be who he is, just turn it down to 9 instead of at 13 where it currently was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And,
Hmm.
but could you imagine him saying all that stuff during like a media tour as champion, bro? That'd be Jesus. Dana thinks he wants that, but he doesn't want that, man. That's not
No,
gonna be
that's so
So,
funny.
what did we think of the Volkov versus Tai Tuivasa experience?
I didn't. They didn't fight. What are you talking about? That never
good. They
happened.
didn't fight. Yeah, exactly. I'm
Are you
confused.
are you guys gaslighting me?
Yeah, we're gaslighting you. Yeah,
See, I'm
I
gonna
said
start
before.
using that word now.
Yeah, good job. That was a pretty good. That was a pretty good one. But yeah, it's like I said before the fight that Ty, like, I feel like Ty is better. I feel like Ty, has really good clinch instincts. He has really good timing. He's has obviously a really good chin, hits insanely hard. I feel like he's better. I just don't know that he's here to win super hard. And it's like in his fight against Pavlovich, he's about to fight a Pavlovich, right?
Yeah.
Like Pavlovich, And so you'd expect him to be like writing his will and then training like no other. But instead, he's saying, like, I wanted to get this fight because I wanted to fight before the holidays. That way, I can chill during the holidays. And it's like, dude, like, and don't get me wrong, that's how I would be if I was a fighter. But that's not how people in the top 5 are. People in the top 5 are obsessed. They're crazy people. It's borderline unhealthy. So, like, and so I'm like, I don't know if Tuivasa is really here trying to do all this because he knows that as long as he swims somewhere in the top 15, people are going to love him and watch him. They're not watching him because he's a champion or anything like that. And so, like, he has security in that. And then he showed up with a bunch of, like, like with my style facial hair, my style hair. And I was like, oh, he's kind of like, he looks too chill. He looks like he's chilling. He looks like he's just having a good time. And it's like,
His
that's
hair looked
cool.
good. I'm
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna call a spade a spade. Ty's hair looked amazing in there.
Right. I said it looked like mine.
None of exactly. It looked as good as Guy, and none of us can deny that.
Yeah, just don't tell me to take off this headband
good.
Okay.
because it starts right here. But yeah, no, I mean, he just looked chill, and I'm like, you gotta you gotta be a crazy person to beat Volkov.
And the
He's
thing
the
is,
Kevin Holland of heavyweight, really, just in the top
Exactly.
10, just chilling.
and with Ty, it seems like there's a lot of obvious problems with him. Like he needs to learn how to do entries better with these longer, bigger dudes because that's problems he's facing sometimes. But like he doesn't seem to overly commit to fixing them because I feel like you are saying, there's this level of he's satisfied with where he's at. He's content with his position. I mean, he's a lovable fan favorite who's going to keep getting big fights, keep getting paid. People love Tai Tuivasa. He's just going to be one of those guys who stays in the top 7, top 6 echelon of heavyweight for the rest of his career, from what it seems. I mean, I don't know. He doesn't seem very hungry to go any further. And I mean, he has the skill to do it. He has the talent to do it, but you can only go as far as you mentally want to go, I guess.
It's
Well,
also, to me, just like as an example, let's say I could teach Sean O'Malley how to fight like Prime Izzy and leg kick and move around and stuff like that. Like, and he would never lose a fight again. And I was like, Sean, do you want me to teach you that? He'd be like, no, go away. Even I don't care if you help me win. I'm Sean O'Malley. I'm the guy that knocks people out. Even if I lose, I'm gonna lose exciting. And then I'm gonna win another one, it's gonna be exciting. I'm gonna lose another one, it's gonna be exciting. You know what I mean? Like, why would I? And so I just feel like people like Derek Lewis and Tai Tuivasa, who get their name off of being crazy knockout artists, they don't have an incentive to become a better fighter in terms of wrestling, in terms of clinching, in terms of like, all this other stuff. Like they got their name off the knockout, and so they need the knockout, which works against them when in terms of like becoming the best fighter they can be.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. But here's the thing with Tuivasa. He's 30 years old, which is very young for heavyweight, and he's at a crossroads right now. Is he going to take a step back and say, "Hey, I'm going to be the fun fighter. I'm going to be the fan favorite, and that's the way I want to spend the second half of my career"? Or am I going to go back to the drawing board, use my athletic gifts, use my power, and really try to make a run for the heavyweight title? I tend to think that he's more inclined to being the fan favorite, and we're never going to see a legitimate title run from Tai Tuivasa again unless it falls into his lap. But with all that being said, I think Alexander Volkov is one of the more underrated fighters in the sport. It's unfortunate that most fans remember him for being knocked out by Derek Lewis in the "my balls was hot" fight. So whenever you're part of like a huge meme, a huge momentous mixed martial arts event like that, you're always going to be associated with it for the rest of your life. Just like Uriah Hall's always associated with the spinning back kick, just like
Joaquin Buckley.
Just like Joaquin Buckley is always associated with that crazy one. Volkov, unfortunately, is always going to be associated to "my balls was hot," but he's only lost to Cyril Gane, Tom Aspinall, Curtis Blades, and a prime Derek Lewis, where
he was winning
most of that Derek Lewis fight. And he's only 34 too. He hasn't even reached his prime at heavyweight yet. So I really think that a lot of the attention was on Tai Tuivasa. He was the fan favorite. He was the hometown hero. But a lot of us turned a blind eye to how really good Volkov is, how really good he's looked in his last couple fights. And I think we could see another run from Volkov if he gets one more win against a top 5 heavyweight, because the top 5 of heavyweight is the best it's been in years right now. So all Volkov needs is one more win over a guy that we're all high on, and he could be right back in the mix at heavyweight.
Yeah, and to go back to like Tai Tuivasa, the whole contentment thing, it's like when he fought Cyril Gane, I'm trying to remember. I think he was on a decent winning streak when he fought Cyril, and this fight with Cyril, obviously he lost, but like it was a dog fight. I mean, Tai had his moments. He took a bunch of big shots. He kept going. He never gave up. He even dropped Gane at one point, almost had him. And I think he had a very fun fight with Gane, but I think also losing that fight, and maybe it's not fair to say, but I think it also took away a lot of the motivation to make a title run, because I think he was on a good winning streak. I think he wanted to make a decent little title run, and he almost had the win over Gane when he knocked him down, but then he still ended up losing at the end of the day. So he's like, okay, well, I gave everything I had, still ended up losing. But the fans love me. They love my exciting fights. They love my personality. So if I'm going to lose to these guys when I give everything I have, I might as well just cement myself as like the fan favorite and just be satisfied with that. The highlight reel knockout artist.
Also, I did like the Ezekiel choke, and I liked how he held mount, because there's like whenever you're you're that big, wrestling, grappling, jiu-jitsu, especially just grappling, like is just different than when you're like a normal sized person. There's a whole different set of rules. There's a whole different set of what you do, because you can be heavier. You're like, your proportions are different, and you're both always going to be sweaty, and you're both going to have a lot of relaxed muscle, and you're both going to be heavier. So like there's just a different set of priorities, and he held mount very, very well. And I was looking at him and I'm like, oh, I think that Ty's kind of just going to stand up. Like, look at that. Because I'm used to watching smaller guys. I'm used to watching lightweights and bantamweights and stuff like that. But no, that's how you grapple. And there's people like Alexei Olenek and stuff like that that just understand. And it's like how to grapple with big guys when you're a big guy. And I feel like that's so hard to do because if you are Jailton and you want to grapple with somebody who's huge, you have to find a 260-pound person that's a black belt. And that's the only person that you can train with.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Ian Gary, hey, what's up, Conor McGregor? Hey, what's up, Sean Strickland? Hey, what's up, Chris Curtis? Hey, what's up? Just whatever.
Yeah, there's so many more bodies that can go with a 170-pound guy, and finding that elite 260-pound body to throw around. But I don't know, Jailton Almeida, he looks like he trains like...
Yeah, no, he's different. Which is why I'm confused.
He's just like a freak of nature. Like he just wakes up and just like starts beating people.
Like him and Rosenstrike didn't even look like they were in the same weight class, but he just ragdolled him with ease. It wasn't like he didn't break a sweat with it.
Yeah, dude, Rosenstrike's face. Do you remember his face? He was just like
bewildered.
Yeah, it was like, what?
Yeah. Yair, sorry, I call him Yair Rosenstruck, even though he's Yair.
Yair
we got the main event, the co-main event, and the featured fight. Were there any undercard prelim type fights that stuck out to you worth mentioning?
I mean, the Moroccan guy, his fight, best fight on the card, easily 100%. I need to see.
Who? Oh,
the Moroccan dude.
Oh, that was Landon Quinones versus Halal Calvin Gastelum. I mean, Nazareth Hackbrass.
Yeah. Yeah.
And MMA on Point called him Halal Calvin Gastelum. I thought that was hilarious. That was a good fight. See, the Landon Quinones, I followed his career throughout The Ultimate Fighter, and he was kind of a twerp on the show, and it's a reality show, so you're always going to turn up your douchebaggery a little bit, and I think he turned up his douchebaggery up to 15 on that show, causing problems with everybody, just saying a bunch of stuff. My IQ actually lowered hearing all of his confessionals, but I was able to get it back up to snuff. However, this fight of his completely won me over on him. It was a 3-round war. The leg kicks were working early for Landon Quinones, but I feel like Nasserat had more gas in the tank come the third round. He had more experience in the mind come the third round. Very close fight. Obviously, Nasserat inflicted more damage, but that was a fun little gem on the prelims that kept the momentum going a couple hours into the card.
Yeah.
That's true. Wait. Hold on. Next week. Next week is Shevchenko versus Grasso, right?
Noche.
Oh my God. That one it flew I guess because it's not a pay-per-view, but it completely flew under the radar. I'm just not realizing. That's such a fire card, man.
Do you want me to run down the card really quick?
Yeah, just real quick. Just what are they?
Okay, from bottom to top, we got Josephine Knudsen versus Marnik Man. Josephine Knudsen didn't get a contract on the Contender Series, but the UFC sees something in her and is bringing her back. Here's a good one. Tracy Cortez returns versus Jasmine Jazz Devicius. This is a top 15 women's flyweight fight. Women's flyweight's the best women's division right now.
Yeah, dude. Everybody's always talking about how good Tracy Cortez is.
Wait,
yeah.
I think Cortez, is that the person who fumbled Brian Ortega?
She did fumble Brian Ortega. Yeah, it's pretty rough. You'd hate to be her, but maybe hopefully she can get it one dub.
Yeah.
We have Edgar Chairez versus Daniel De Silva. I think Edgar Chairez was the guy that fought Tetsuo Taira, beat him up a little bit, but eventually lost.
That sounds right.
Roman Kopylov, a.k.a. Russian Chase Hooper, versus Josh Fremd in a middleweight bout. Wow, Roman's fighting down. I thought they would give him someone tougher, but he's probably most likely going to work Josh Fremd, all due respect.
I mean, he fought at 291, right? So
I'm sorry.
he fought at 291.
Yeah, he had a great head kick or something impressive like that.
I heard it. I heard it from the nosebleed. I heard the
Oh
crack.
yeah, you went.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. So I heard it on my TV and it was loud, so I can only imagine what it's like over there. Women's strawweight. The strawweight. Sorry. The prelim headliner is Lupita Godinez versus Elise Reed.
Loopy.
Why is Lupi Godinez familiar? I think she fought 2 times in 1 week or something like that. In my that's however.
She lost
But
second one. Yeah.
That's the that's the prelim main event. So the main card, Fernando Padilla versus the Canadian Kyle Nelson. Fernando Padilla burst onto the scene, knocked out Julian Erosa, and this Kyle Nelson guy had a good fight on the UFC 289 Canadian card. I forget who he fought, but this one should be a good litmus test for Padilla. At lightweight, we have Daniel Zellhuber versus Christos Giagos. Christos Giagos, unfortunately, I know him for getting knocked out by Arman Sarukian. And Daniel Zellhuber is just a very young, probably 24, maybe 23, tall striker. Oh, and we've heard of this guy before. In the featured fight, we have Raul Rosas Jr. taking on Terrence Mitchell. Terrence Mitchell is a tough alum. He recently lost to Cameron Simon at International Fight Week. He fights out of Alaska, very tall bantamweight. And then, of course, we have Raul Rosas Jr., who I rank him as the third greatest bantamweight of all time behind Sterling and Dominic Cruz, but you know, that's a controversial opinion in these parts. Welterweight, our co-main event is Kevin Holland versus Jack Della Maddalena. That is gonna be fireworks. Jesus. That is a great fight. I love how Mexican both of these fighters are, celebrating Mexican Independence Day. It's gonna be a tussle. And then, of course, we've been hearing about this one for months now. Women's flyweight championship between Alexa Grasso and Valentina Shevchenko, who speaks fluent Spanish. She doesn't have like the Mexican heritage. I think it's more Spanish, but definitely appealing to the Latin market on both fronts in this one. That should be an amazing rematch.
Absolutely. Oh my God, that's an amazing dude. If we had one more pretty decent title fight on the top, that would be a really good pay-per-view.
Yeah. Really
straight up, this card's better than 289.
Okay.
But 289 had Oliveira. How could you say a card with Oliveira?
Look at his picture.
Oliveira's my op now, man. I hate that guy. He's a bum.
Yeah, I forgot who I was talking to.
Look at he's the number one Beneil stand. So the one saving grace of 289 he hated.
I hated it. But it's okay because Beneil wasn't himself that night. Yeah.
This is this thing that he's been saying because Charles Oliveira said he wasn't himself against Islam. He's like, well, okay, well, in that case, Beneil wasn't himself against Charles Oliveira, which is something I do agree with, by the way. But regardless, JDM versus Holland, what do you think?
Why don't you go first, CEO? Because, go first, CEO.
All right. Honestly, I like Kevin Holland. He's fire. He's cool. But I'm picking the man who I had as my third draft pick as the guy who could be welterweight champion within the next 2 years, Jack Della Maddalena. I think, obviously, the range is going to be an issue. The size, man, he's going to tower over Jack. But I don't think it's going to be too bad. Could be an issue, but I mean, we saw him fight someone with a significant size advantage on him in Randy Brown, and we saw how that played out. I don't think it's going to be the same fight, of course, but I do think Jack, he can, he can get in the range with Kevin. He can get close in, box him, dirty boxing. There's not going to be any grappling, probably, but I could see some offensive grappling from Jack just because he's been very adamant on showing that he can grapple. But I think it'll be overall a very interesting fight, but I could see Kevin Holland getting like a knockout or a good decision over him. But ultimately, I will say Jack Della Maddalena.
When was the last time Holland fought? Was it at 291, the one you went to, guy?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
Darce choked Chiesa.
The Darce Knight.
Oh, okay.
And then before that, it was Santiago Ponzinibbio who knocked him out.
How dare
And before that, it was Chimaev. I'm a Kevin Holland fan.
Nice. I love Kevin Holland too. They're both coming off. This is a quick turnaround for both of them because Della Maddalena just fought Basil Hafez not too long ago, and that was a tough fight for him. But Basil Hafez is really underrated and really good. I can't make a prediction on this fight right now because I'm just too big of a fan of both of them to look at it objectively. So I have to pull out of this one. But what I did want to mention that's a surprise to me is that I really think that I feel bad for Raul Rosas Jr. because his 15 minutes of fame might be up after this fight because they're putting him in a huge spot. He's a huge Mexican star in the promotion right now. And I think that the UFC is not the place to develop your skills. It's not the place to grow and take easy fights. I do think he has a tough test ahead of him with Terrence Mitchell. And I think if he loses or doesn't look that great, all the hype around Raul Rosas could deflate on Mexican Independence Day.
Ultimately sucks. I love Raul. I think he's a very interesting prospect. I mean, obviously got a lot of hype for being the youngest signee in UFC history. And I mean, he screams potential because obviously he's so young, has so much obvious talent already, but there are glaring issues like he gassed himself out trying way too hard to get a finish last time, and he wasn't confident enough to stay on the feet, which that's obviously a glaring weakness. If you can keep him on the feet, you're probably going to beat him. And that's a big issue in bantamweight because to even do decent in bantamweight, you have to be very well-rounded in that division. So there are a lot of glaring issues. There's a lot of problems that stick out, but I do hope Raul can address them with this fight. I do hope he can grow a lot, and obviously the UFC is probably not the place to do that. But with him being so young, I do have hope that he can learn from this, he can adapt from this, and hell, maybe even use that loss to make himself a better fighter. Because let's be real, he was probably feeling himself a lot before that loss. It was getting to his head a lot, probably because I mean he's a young teenager who got signed to the UFC. So I'm hoping that can humble him, make him a better fighter, make him more composed, and I'm hoping on this card he can show everyone why he's in the UFC and why he deserves to be there.
Yeah. I always sort of have pause when somebody shows up in the UFC for a reason other than like we believe they're going to do extremely well. Like for example, like Bo Nichols shows up and it's like he's one of the best wrestlers ever. Like he's going to start killing people, and then we see that he has hands. It's like, okay, we know that he's like really good at this, and that's why he's. And same thing with Hamzat, same thing with just all these people that we get from other promotions, people from Cage Warriors, all this kind of stuff. We see them show up and like run through everybody, but then when somebody shows up and they're like, hey, there's this kid named Ian Gary and we have him here because he's Irish, I'm like,
yeah,
oh no, he's gonna die. You know what I mean? And then turns out Ian Gary Ian Gary like winds up, to be really, really good.
Yeah.
But Raul Rosas Jr. is here because he's young.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, oh no, like I don't know actually how good he is. But at the same time, C-Rod is so good. Like C-Rod is a very, very, very good fighter.
Underrated.
And so I think losing a decision to him where you won one round and he wins two is not the biggest deal in the world. And like I feel like 90% of the bantamweights would lose to C-Rod, 29-28.
Okay.
So like, I don't really think that's that big of a deal. I think that he can, I think that the loss, a lot of people, whenever they lose, they're like, I worked so hard. and I still lost. What's the point of even working hard? And so then they work a little bit less hard, and then they lose again. What was the point of even working that hard? And they kind of and other people, they lose, and then they show up like Izzy Pajeda too, just like the Terminator. And it's a little bit more rare, but that takes a little bit of maturity. I don't know if Ro's there, but I don't really know him as a person. But we're gonna find out whether or not he takes a loss and improves upon it, or if he says like, well, I was only in it if it was going to be easy and all sunshine and rainbows.
And I think a loss, it can either do, especially when you're a young undefeated fighter, it can either be the best thing that happened to you, or it can lead to your downfall. Like two examples of both sides. Darren Till, undefeated, young prospect. Everyone loves him. They want him to be the guy. Loses to Tyron Woodley, and we start to slowly see the decline where he starts trying less and less and less. He doesn't develop anymore. His physique starts getting worse and worse because he's starting to drink more, start partying more, putting a lot more less effort in the gym, and we see that steep decline. But then it's a very different circumstance from Raul, but Islam Makhachev. Many people make fun of him because he lost and Khabib didn't, and he's Khabib's shadow. But like Islam, there was a lot of mistakes he was making before that loss. He got very excited. He got blah, 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 had the holes, and he ultimately got hurt because of it and finished. And he got his first loss on his record. Ever since then, he has taken it extremely seriously. He's patched up that hole. He keeps himself very composed now. He's become one of the best defensive strikers inside the UFC, which might be a controversial hot take, I don't know. But he's become very, very good. Now he's the lightweight champion, and hell, by all means, he might be able to surpass Khabib as the lightweight GOAT, depending on how he does with Oliveira, how he does with Gaethje. And I think I'm very excited to see how Raul takes it, because obviously he's young. There's still a lot of development there for maturity. But I do believe he is passionate about the sport. I do think he takes it seriously from what I've seen. And I do hope, at least, he will be one of the people that uses this to become even better instead of becoming a Darren Till.
You don't want to become a Darren Till, guys. That's my word of advice.
Always try to avoid that. And yeah, so but beyond that, who do you think is going to keep Aaron Blanchfield's belt warm for the time being? Do you think that Valentina or Alexa Grasso is going to keep that belt warm and spit shined ready for Aaron Blanchfield? Who has the honor?
I think Alexa Grasso gets the job done. There's a stat where in rematches, the older fighter seldom wins. So I'm just going off of that.
For me, I'm picking Alexa Grasso for a Tanner belt. And I love Valentina Shevchenko. I think it would be awesome if she won. Obviously, Aaron Blanchfield versus Shevchenko for the belt. That's amazing. That has fireworks all over it. But I think we've seen, like, I don't want to say a decline, but slowly but surely, Valentina fights have been getting closer and closer. Like with the Santos, that became very apparent because many people feel she should have lost the decision to Santos. And then her next fight after that, she does very well with Grasso. I mean, it's a very competitive back and forth fight. Ultimately makes a mistake on the feet, ends up getting caught by it and submitted. And I think that division is arguably one of the best in the UFC right now. There are so many hot prospects coming through that division. It is very interesting, and I'm excited for it. And I think it's kind of just passing her by a little bit. Like, I think she's very good, and she had an amazing prime, but it's almost like it's not as drastic as Ronda Rousey's situation because Shevchenko's actually well-rounded and good, but it's almost like Ronda, she was able to dominate for so long, but then like the newer, hungrier, more well-developed women started coming through the rankings, and the division passed her by. And I think we might be seeing that slowly happening to Shevchenko, maybe not as drastic, but I do think we've seen a short, slow decline. And I think Grasso will retain the belt. And I don't know what the career trajectory after that is for Shevchenko, but who knows?
Yeah, I kind of think the same way in terms of like the first fight was very, very close, so it's really hard because it would have been 2-2 if it would have went to the fifth, right? Like, because I'm pretty sure Valentina won 1-3, and then Alexa won 2, and then she finished her in the fourth, so obviously she would get that round. So it's just it's a very close fight. And it's going to be kind of like one of these immediate rematches where it's who improves more based on what they learned last time because it was so close. Like when Izzy and Beta is another like recent close fight where it was like, okay, they're very, very close till the very end. It's like who can improve more and learn more. It's like, well, Alex was like, oh, I just need to throw more leg kicks, and that was good. And then Izzy realized that, he needs to be a little bit more forthcoming with his stuff and, not respond, like go on his own. And so, like, and even like if we look back to like Connor and Nate, like all Connor needed to learn was just don't get tired. And he was able to win based on that. Like he was pretty much just like, I'm just going to knock this guy out. And then they were like, no, you're not going to knock him out. And he goes, okay. And that's all he needed to learn to win. And then he goes out there and wins. And like, how do you, I mean, I don't know what they could possibly learn other than just focusing on themselves. Cause it's not like they have super huge glaring weaknesses. Like Valentina looks a little bit slower. So maybe, Grasso could like just kind of push the pace or something and just be first and third, but like, I don't know. I think that there's more room for improvement for Grasso, especially because she got the belt. That's what happens when you get the belt. You just get way better.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Valentina kind of has been looking a little bit worse and worse. So yeah, ultimately, I think it's more likely than not that Alexa will win, but I could see a world where Valentina wins.
All valid. All valid.
Mm-hmm.
So I still can't believe that's next week. We got not a pay-per-view. We got a pay-per-view quality card next week. We just had a pay-per-view. We discussed the X's and O's of just about all the important topics. Anything else that stood out to you from this MMA week? Is there like a closing tradition that you guys have developed at this point, or?
I'm going to start a closing tradition, which is where I ask the weirdest question. Okay, at the very end. Okay, so here we go.
Go for it.
1 billion Sean O'Malley's versus every single Pokemon.
I
think every single Pokemon. You get a couple Charizards, a couple Onyxes, Snorlax rolls over all of them. I'm going with the Pokemon.
Like, I'm gonna be real. I don't care how many Sean O'Malley's you do. There's literal Pokemon that are gods in their universes. I mean, like, man, I don't know how you could argue the Sean O'Malley's win that one, to be honest with you.
Sean O'Malley, Twitter, do your thing. These two guys underrating your boy once again. 1 billion is a lot.
I know, but it's just like if it's 1 billion humans, that's going to be to their detriment because they're going to trample each other, they're going to fall, they're going to trip, they're going to infect each other with colds. Like
their ACS. Just
could you imagine,
billion?
Could you imagine the logistic nightmare of a billion people all marching forward together in a common cause? Like they're going to overheat. There's just like so many red flags I see with that.
But just, yeah, the fact that it's Sean O'Malley, yeah, all of their ACLs just go, their perennial nerves get hit.
Yeah.
They're just falling and they're stepping over other Sean O'Malley's and yeah, that's pretty rough. What if they all had a pink Lamborghini?
Oh. Okay.
That would be a pile up. That would be a billion car pile up on the freeway.
Oh, yeah. There'd be traffic to get to the fight.
Yeah,
That's a
exactly.
lot of carbon emission. I'm not gonna lie. We might have to check up on the ozone. That's the real loser of that.
Okay, y'all. Thanks again for coming on. This was a lot of fun. Plug your stuff real quick. Why don't y'all?
Uh,
Go
uh,
first, CEO.
all right. So
No longer the CEO.
Follow
Mhm.
me on the TikTok, greatest TikTok account of all time. We just started a series called Benil's Biblical Beatdowns, which every Sunday, which is the day of the Lord, we talk about the most holy man inside the UFC. And yeah, if you want someone who's very delusional, loves Benil Dariush, then I'm your guy. If you hate Benil, then go away. I don't care. But yeah, that's about it. You can follow me on Instagram too. Hendrix Fate. The links should be in the description if I remember to put them. But yeah, that's about it.
Awesome, Hendrix. My name's Teeballpaul. That's Tee Ball Paul. I'm the most active on TikTok. You could follow me on YouTube. You could follow me on Instagram. Do not recommend it. Follow me on TikTok. That's where all the latest, greatest news from the MMA world lives. And thanks to Guy Vega for having me on his wonderful podcast, I guess.
All right, till next time, viewers. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.